first for news and the best live sport. This is BBC 5 Live. 5 Live Breakfast.
Good morning, welcome to 5 Live Breakfast. Rachel Burden and Claire MacDonald with you this morning. Now, a ban on letting agents charging upfront fees to private renters is expected to be one of the key announcements in today's autumn statement. The government estimates that a ban would help around 4.3 million families who currently pay an average of £337 when they agree to rent a home. Sally Lawson runs Lawson's Letting Agents in Wolverhampton, and Vicky Spratt is features editor at the lifestyle website The Debrief. She petitioned for letting agent fees to be scrapped. Morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Vicky, I know you've been campaigning for this for quite some time. Your response?
I think it's a great thing. It's a victory, no doubt about it. This will help millions of renters, people like myself, young professionals, and also families and people on low incomes. It is without doubt a success. But is it enough? We haven't seen the detail yet. I think there are still questions to be asked.
Well, we'll get onto that in a minute. Sally, just first of all, your reaction to this, because it's going to hit your company in the pocket, isn't it?
Certainly, yeah. I must admit we're very shocked by the release that's come out today, and I think it's not good news. I think it's bad news for the people that it's intending to help, which is the end user, the tenant. So I think it's very disappointing.
Why is it bad news for them if they're paying less?
They effectively will be paying less on the tenant fees, which means obviously the charges are still going to be there, the landlords are going to be paying them, and they've only got one way of reclaiming that, and that's going to be through the rent. So I can see rent increases just like we've had in Scotland, which I think is very disappointing.
That's not true. Rents haven't gone up in Scotland. They've risen no more than they have in England in recent years, which is because we have a housing shortage, so the cost of housing is going up. There is absolutely no evidence whatsoever in any of the independent reports that have been commissioned that banning fees in Scotland cause rents to go up. And indeed, we have one of the least regulated rental markets in Europe, and across Europe, rents don't go up because letting agents can't charge fees.
Well, I would argue with that. If you listen to a lot of the reports, they're saying out there at the moment that rents in Scotland have gone up to over 4%, and in fact, over the same period, rents in England have actually gone down.
But that's in cities.
Overall,
that's
an
in
overall
cities.
figure.
That's not Scotland overall.
That's an overall statistic for the whole of Scotland. It's over 4%. It's gone up in Scotland, but it's actually gone down in the UK.
Well, this is a risk.
Figure.
This is a risk, though, isn't it,
I don't
Vicky? If there's money there, and surely somebody's going to want to make it back.
I don't buy that. I think that the problem is the idea that the rents will now have to go up is predicated on the idea that these fees were justifiable and necessary in the first place. They simply aren't. I've moved about 10 times in 10 years, and I have paid these fees. I've paid probably thousands now. They are just not justifiable. A credit check costs you £15, £20. Why am I being charged a £150 admin fee?
Why is that then, Sally? It's not justifiable, is it?
Well, if it was just a referencing fee, then no, that wouldn't be justifiable. But the actual work that goes involved in actually setting up a tenancy, taking a tenant on, putting everything together, it's over 17 hours of work. And we've got to remember here that what's happened over the last 2 years has been an increase in legislation on landlords and letting agents on the responsibilities of getting everything right, compliant, to make sure that the tenant is safe. And this has just increased the burden continuously. For example, the right to rent checks on the immigration, the Deregulation Act, and all the changes that have to be put in place there to make sure that everything is compliant and safe. The checklists are done for provability. Also, in relation to things like safety with the carbon monoxide and smoke alarm tests, having to check the smoke alarm on the day of moving, actually having to go there and test it and then prove that you've tested it.
All of these things are very good points, aren't they, Vicky? You know, they've got more to do because it's more about the legislation has come in. It's more about the safety of the tenant, and surely they should be paid for that.
So I have 3 things to say here. One, I think the cost of this should be borne by the landlord. If you think about renting as the inverse of owning a house, you are not gaining something every month by paying off your mortgage. You are pouring money into somebody else's pocket. The landlord, on the other hand, is making a profit. It's right that they should pay those charges. It's right that they should pay to make sure that their property is safe for habitation. That makes sense. Why should the tenant have to pay for these charges?
Okay, and even if that is the case, though, how do you ensure, because I know you have a different view on this depending on which survey you've looked at, but how do you ensure that this cost is not then passed on to the renter? Because this is what this move today is supposed to all be about, to make it cheaper and more affordable for the hard-working families to rent in this country.
As with anything, the devil's in the detail. We don't know what the detail is yet. I have so many questions about this. How is it going to be enforced? Have they specified exactly which fees they are banning? Because there are several referencing checks, for instance, general admin fees. What is it exactly that they're doing? I think we need to wait and see.
And just briefly, I know you would like to see the end of letting agencies altogether. Because I know you've rented through online agencies. You don't see that they're that necessary.
I would argue that letting agencies are quite redundant. There are websites like OpenRent where you can be put directly in touch with the landlord, and there are safeguards which are managed by the website, but the only person who pays a fee is the landlord. I've used one of those sites. It was a very positive renting experience.
And Sally, briefly tell us why you think letting agencies are still important.
Letting agencies fulfil a very, very important service of making sure that everything is compliant and done correctly. I mean, the amount and level of complexity now is beyond the remit of most landlords. A lot of landlords that have got jobs elsewhere that just own one or two properties, they're not landlords full time. They haven't got time to read up on the deregulation bill, the Immigration Act, becomes experts on checking ID, to understand the different tenancy legislations, the eviction rules, the changes, what's going on Section 21s, the different forms, the changes that are going on across the country. They just haven't got time to read, keep up to date and understand everything that needs to be done, and that's why letting agents is very important on keeping the tenant safe, keeping the tenancy compliant.
Okay, thank you both very much for joining us in this debate this morning. Sally Lawson there, you just heard her. She runs Lawson's Letting Agents in Wolverhampton, and Vicky Spratt, features editor at the lifestyle website The Debrief. It's 7:45.